So in that spirit of the heaviness versus the lightness, do you ever think about maybe there is a responsibility as a human, as a whatever, we are, to try and act more like the heavy, to make the world a better place? And I know you're doing plenty of things towards that, but when you think about at your core, that sense of like, some people listening could think like, oh, racing the Lamborghinis. That sounds awesome and amazing, but there's so many people suffering in the world. Maybe that time would be better spent helping them. And again, no judgment in this. We all could be better in that. But at the very root of that question is this sense of like, how much responsibility do you feel? Do you think we have to question ourselves more? And it's interesting, particularly for you, because where you came from suffering to an extent, from not having to trying to just survive. And in some ways, you've earned this reward to be like, I want to enjoy it now. There's some other people, as you're articulating, in that book, who would say, no, 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 actually, now you even more so have a responsibility to bring more to other people, to ease other people's suffering. How do you think about that? Is there a pressure? Is there a moral obligation in that?
I think there's no right or wrong in this.
Agreed, by the way.
I have friends that are super philanthropic, and I have friends who aren't. I think I would say I'm not the most philanthropic person I know, but I do feel I give a decent amount of my money to causes that I think are worthy. And I do give a decent amount of my time to serving on boards of different nonprofits that I think are doing really meaningful things and that are helping. I think for me, there is this responsibility that I need to give back, but it's also I want to give back. And in some ways, that's selfish too, right? Like I enjoy that. That gives me joy when I see that I've helped someone. I I think this stems from like when we first came to the US, there was a lot of community support. I was like one of those Dear Santa letters where, parents couldn't afford to buy Christmas gifts. I was one of those kids where I'd write Dear Santa. And this is like in the 90s where I was like, I would love to have a Beanie Baby. And that was, I remember one of
Yeah,
my
of
Dear
course.
Santa letters was asking for a Beanie Baby. Now I remember I didn't get the real Beanie Baby. I got some knockoff Beanie Babies, but I loved it. It was great. And I had the toy for years and years. And because of that, I give back to that organization, and I give to organization where I was in school, part of the free after school program. And so I serve on the board of an organization called After School All Stars that provides a free after school program to kids, tens of thousands of kids in Los Angeles. And that brings me joy because I know what it meant to maybe as a kid. I don't know if I necessarily appreciate that, but I know what it meant to my parents to be able to, still work their second job, third job, and not necessarily have to worry so much because I had this after school program that I could go to. And so because we benefited from people helping us and the community, people that didn't know us, basically helping us because they supported these organizations, it makes me feel like I have to, like it's just sort of innate in me. And even I remember growing up, my parents, whenever we went to like Sam's Club and Costco, they in Sam's Club, I think they had the St. Jude's Children's Hospital. Even when my parents really didn't have much money to give, they always still would give when they were at the checkout counter to give $5, $10. They always tried to push themselves because I think in them it's also the why not, you're part of this experience, this human experience, why not also share that? So there are things where it's like very selfish things that I do that it's really the enjoyment is limited to myself and maybe one other person or maybe just myself. And then there are things where yes, I still enjoy it, but it impacts more people, and it's a balance. And there are definitely times where I'm like, ooh, like, all right, I want to go on this really awesome vacation. It's pretty expensive. Like if I went and gave this to one of the organizations, like that could benefit a bunch of kids. So there's always going to be that. And I think part of it is it's really just up to you on what you want to do. And again, I don't think there's a right or wrong.
Mm. I agree. Firstly, I don't think there's a right or wrong either. I think that's who could say, who could ever say? There's so many variables in it to determine what being a good person is or the right way to live is. So I very, very much agree with that. I think I agree with an assumption that maybe you have or is coming through in this a little bit, which is like, if we're really all being honest, we're all selfish, right? Everything we do, I believe, every decision we make because we think it's going to make us better. Now, maybe it's giving to help somebody else because it's going to make us feel good, or it's an organization that, we feel some connection to, or we buy our spouse or our partner a nice gift, but it all, like, it could be making other people feel good too, but it's also about us, like us feeling good. And this is where you were before too. When you think about the things you want to do, there's enjoyment. You said the word enjoyment comes in. You think about what you enjoy. And I find myself thinking about that a lot, of like, maybe this is a cynical view, but maybe we'd all be better off if it's true, acknowledging this view that we all are selfish. We all want to feel good. We want that enjoyment. We want happiness. We want pleasure. Don't make pretend that's not true. Accept that, and just try and find ways within that to still understand that we've evolved enough and can see things where we should try and still give back. We should try and still do more, challenge ourselves to do more and better. And maybe that would allow us to feel in a more like of an equilibrium. I think sometimes people they lie to themselves, I guess, frankly, and they convince themselves that it's okay to just be totally selfish. I don't need to be anything more than that. Or maybe they convince themselves that I give so much and I'm totally selfless and it's not about me at all. And I just don't know if that's true as like part of human nature. I think we all are selfish at our core, and it's just acknowledging and accounting for that and trying to do the best we can in light of it is the quote unquote right answer. I know it's a word jumble there, but what do you think about that? What's your reaction to that?
I completely agree. In fact, there's a philosopher, I want to say it's Saint Augustine, that is the philosopher, where they said who is good and who is bad, like what's moral, what's not moral. And he said the person that just does something that's good because they just naturally do good is not as good as the person
Mm,
that does something good even though they want to do the bad,
yes.
but instead they force themselves to do the good thing. That is the better person. And
Yes.
I thought that was so interesting. And I remember studying this in high school and being like, whoa. I always, the more moral person is the person just naturally that is going to do this. But it was like turning it the other way around, which is the person knowing that they want to do the bad thing, but instead they do the good thing.
Mm, mm.
And maybe that hopefully could make some people feel better in that, oh,
Yeah.
I'm a good person because I always want to do the thing where it's more selfish than the less selfish thing. But I ultimately agree with you, which is we shouldn't lie and be like, like I'm just a selfless person. And if you're maybe a selfless person, I mean, maybe there's like that person out there that's just chemically wired to truly just be that. But for most, I think, humans, just how our DNA is made and how we evolved and how we survived, you sort of have to be selfish. And again, selfishness doesn't mean that other people have to suffer or
Right.
that you need to put people in a worse position, but it's that we, in our DNA, I think is such that I truly believe most of us want to help people and want to, because it's in our DNA
Mhm.
to be happy when we go make somebody else feel better. And
Mm.
so that to me, that's a good thing. And um I am the belief that most people are born just really good and most people have really good intentions. And
Mm.
yeah.